Last week, the Fed hawked to it on the market with a 50 basis point cut to interest rates. We ended the week near all-time highs, but with some rollover. If we get a continuation of that rollover and break under Friday's lows, I think it will be a setup for a short position. We're kind of entering into a much wider chop zone from there. So I would, though, keep an eye on maybe 560 to get some support. If not, we're going to 555, and then lower than that, we'd look for the 530s. Although at that point, I would think that we are entering out of the bull market. I think there's some setup for a continuation to the upside. I think 580 is a target that you should be looking for on a longer time frame and into the end of the year. I'm still thinking 600. The one thing that I think really stands out to me is the fear and greed index from CNN. As you can see, the market is greedy. Market momentum is greed. Stock price strength is extreme greed. Stock price breadth is extreme greed. But call and put options are neutral, which is highly unusual. Market volatility is also unusual, which has neutral, which is unusual. Safe haven demand, neutral. That's okay. That doesn't really mean anything. Just means that the market maybe isn't fearful, but junk bond demand is an extreme fear. So the way that you collect all those sentiments, you would basically say that there's short-term momentum to the upside on the market, but there is still lingering economic fear, okay? So the market is still very bearish, and when you see market momentum and stock price in the greed or extreme greed territory, and then you see that the call and put options are actually neutral, what that likely means is that there's aggressive hedging going on in the market. And we actually saw that in the flow from last week. Coming into Friday, or Thursday rather, there were tons of hedging positions. Then we had OPEX on Friday, and we saw the rolling of those positions as well. The market is kind of fighting to the upside, and the economic fears displayed by junk bonds being in extreme fear tells me that any good news we get from the economic data this week has massive upside risk, where you could see squeezes occur in the market. So in my opinion, all the risk is to the upside, not to the downside. For the economic data this week, what's going to really matter is going to be the Fed Powell speaking on a Thursday, along with the GDP growth rate. We also have the core PCE price index, personal income, personal spending will be good as well to hear from them. The one thing that lots of people are talking about with these economic fears is the health of the consumer. And of course, we've been hearing lots of allusions back to 1980 where people are expecting inflation to roar back. I do expect inflation to come back, but I'm not really concerned about that until 2025. When we look at the health of the consumer right now in the 2020s, I mean, obviously, just at a glimpse, right? This does not look like 1980. And the consumer's been very strong. We've seen other economic data reports, such as the Small Business Optimism Survey, has continued to be strong. Small business owners being optimistic is not a recession sign, okay? It's actually a sign of a strong market. It isn't as strong as it was. It's seen some decline, but that it's not enough to really say that doomsday is over the horizon. So the way I'm looking at the market right now is I'm feeling really bullish about everything. Now, the stock that stands out to me right now is Tesla, which is in a clear breakout on this larger wedge here. We got some great price action, had some amazing trades. And right now what I'm looking for is to see if we can get a breakout over 245, which should give us a nice squeeze into the 250s and be a great setup to the upside there. We'll talk more about this probably on next week's report, but remember, we do have the robo-taxi announcement coming in early October, and that will be a really nice bullish catalyst for Tesla. The biggest winner from last week with the most upside trend was CrowdStrike, which is now at my target. I think a lot of you might remember when I was talking about this stock in July, I was loading up on my positions, and I was getting very bullish, and I said, this thing's probably going back to 300. Here we are at 300. We're approaching my 306 target. From here, I think you could go to 322. So I am still long on the shares, and I'm looking for us to even get higher than that. I think we could go all the way to 380 from here. and get back near the all-time highs for the stock. Especially when we see the TTM on the daily starting to fire to the upside. The RSI is starting to creep its way into some overvalued territory, but the weekly is just now rolling over and starting to accumulate some bullish momentum here. So I would expect maybe some short-term pullbacks over the next few weeks, and then I think this is going much higher. I'm very optimistic about CrowdStrike. Now, Intel's really interesting. I think we've seen multiple. This is not showing us the key facts we actually need to know, but we've seen multiple bids from Qualcomm and from the other companies escaping me, from Apollo Global Management, who have been wanting to buy portions of Intel. These are offers in the billions, and so we might see a bidding war start to develop for Intel. Now, the thing is, there's about 15 foundry locations at Intel. Each of them is worth about 10 billion, and I believe the company's market cap is a small fraction of that right now. Market capitalization, only at less than 100 billion. This company is outright undervalued. Now, lots of people will say, well, that's because management is just that bad, and we see that where management can be huge, such a huge negative drag on a company that they actually trade under basically their raw asset pricing. Price to book value. So what I am looking for is if we get a squeeze over 23.16, we can go to 25. Above that, I would look for 29.54 on Intel. There's this large gap up area on a multi-year time frame. Even we could get some chop in here, but we see that it loves to just kind of be a magnet towards these pricings. So I'm looking to see if that plays out on the bullishness. The company is going to get split up. I also see that as very bullish as well. I think the parts of this company are worth more than the whole, and I think that's very clear from any level of analysis that you do. Bitcoin looks really interesting to me. From here, we're continuing to see this be bullish. The dailies starting to pull through for us. The weeklies trying to turn over again. We've seen it fake out before, right around this level. It's still in this chop zone. You need to break out of that. But when we're talking about the headwinds for Bitcoin, it makes 2025 really interesting. When we're talking about all the things that might make the stock market bullish, they're actually huge catalysts for both gold and for Bitcoin. And the gold's another one where this thing just keeps going higher and higher. I don't believe I have a gold chart set up here. We can start to pull that up. Yeah, this thing, every little tiny pullback ends up getting bought right up, back up to all-time highs. Gold is incredible right now. I don't think in my lifetime we've seen gold be quite this ridiculous. Well, we have. Back in 2008 we did. So it looks like we're in the middle of this type of movement. I expect to continue to 2025. And when I look at Bitcoin, I expect this to play catch up. It's all the same fundamentals that work for Bitcoin and for gold, except you don't have the supply constraints that gold has, where people can just mine more gold if it's more valuable. It actually becomes a drag on the price. With Bitcoin, it's the opposite. If more people mine Bitcoin, it's actually an accelerant to the price. So it looks crazy bullish to me. That's all I'll say. So I'm really confident in my BT calls. We actually have the $3 break coming in. I think you could get some large gap ups here. I do also want to say that where is the chart? I don't know if I have the chart pulled up here. We'll get XBI up here. XBI still looks really strong to me. I like biotech here, and this looks like a beautiful breakout to the upside coming in for XBI. The last stock I want to talk about for this weekly report would be Lowe's, which I think is also showing lots of bullish momentum. I think we've got it's not the cleanest cup and handle, but it's clearly there. A triple top. Some of you might have heard the saying, triple tops don't exist. This is actually a quadruple top, to be honest, looking at this. Because you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, never heard of that. It's going higher. I really like Lowe's for some long-term options here. And I know there's lots of fears in general over, the macro environment, over the things that are going to come next year. Just realize that the way I see it with the market hedge, markets don't crash when they're hedged. So when I see all that hedging, I'm seeing all that safety being set, and I don't expect it to print, to be honest with you. There's not a lot of people actually in the market, even though it's at all-time highs. So many people on the socials are bearish. I expect lots of them, especially the institutional fund managers who need to, at the end of the year, start to catch up with their returns, start to pile into this market. Now, will they do it right now, right as we're heading into October? Maybe not. But I think by November or December, if we know for longer positions, like if I buy Lowe's calls into the end of the year, or if I buy biotech calls into the end of the year, and I look for a few more interest rate cuts on a sector that's very interest rate sensitive, I expect those to pay very well. All right. And in I can set up those long-term positions. If we get some short-term volatility, I can then hedge those positions by chasing that downside on maybe the indexes, or even maybe look at VIX calls if they look appealing. That's what I see on the market right now. That's going to be it for the weekly report. Nice, short, and sweet. I hope you have a great week, and God bless.